So we're surrounded by misinformation, right? Half-truths everywhere. It makes you wonder, how do we even find our way? How do we find a light in all that darkness? Well, that is the exact question at the heart of Carl Sagan's masterpiece, The Demon-Haunted World. And today we're going to dive into his incredible answer.
And here it is. This is the book we're exploring today. Just look at that subtitle, Science as a Candle in the Dark. I mean, that perfectly sums up the whole idea, doesn't it? Sagan's point is that science isn't just a boring collection of facts. No, it's a way of thinking. It's this incredible tool we have for cutting through all the superstition and doubt out there.
All right, so to kick things off, Sagan tells this really powerful personal story. He talks about being on a long car ride with a driver, a guy he calls Mr. Buckley. And this Mr. Buckley, he was smart, he was curious, he was absolutely fascinated by the wonders of the universe. The only problem, well, it was the kind of wonders he was fascinated by. And this right here, this really gets to the core of the problem Sagan was trying to point out. You see, Mr. Buckley had this real, genuine hunger for knowledge, just like so many of us do. But the stuff that was actually reaching him, the stories you see all over popular culture, it wasn't science. It was something else entirely.
So what did he want to talk about? Oh, the usual stuff. Frozen aliens and government freezers, channeling spirits of the dead, the supposed power of crystals, Nostradamus' prophecies, the lost continent of Atlantis. And for every single one of these really tempting ideas, Sagan had to be guided gently say, the evidence just isn't there. The poor guy's natural curiosity was basically being starved of reality and force-fed a diet of pure pseudoscience.
But okay, this is about way more than just one guy's beliefs. Sagan is warning us that this kind of disconnect from scientific thinking, it has huge consequences for all of us. I mean, think about it. When an entire society starts to lose the ability to tell the difference between what's actually real and what just feels good, well, the stakes get dangerously high really fast. And just how big is the problem? Well, this number should shock you. 95%. Sagan pointed to surveys that suggested a staggering 95% of Americans are scientifically illiterate. Just let that sink in for a second. We live in a world that is completely 100% built on science and technology, yet the vast, vast majority of us don't have the basic tools to understand how it even works. So this is where we see the fundamental split. Pseudoscience, it gives you the easy answers. It tells you exactly what you want to hear and runs away from any tough questions. Science is the total opposite. It thrives on hard questions. It demands proof, and here's the crazy part. It's constantly trying to prove itself wrong. It's like this self-correcting engine always grinding its way closer to the truth. And look, the results of this aren't some abstract philosophical thing. We're talking life and death here. For almost all of human history, life was brutally short. 20s, maybe 30s. This incredible leap we've made, doubling, even tripling that in just the last century and a half, that is a direct gift from science. It comes from understanding germs, from public health, from modern medicine, plain and simple. And this isn't some new idea either. This goes way, way back. Over 2,000 years ago, the ancient Greek physician Hippocrates basically said, men think epilepsy is divine just because they don't understand it. He pointed out that if we called everything we don't understand divine, well, there'd be no end to divine things. Science gives us a different path. Instead of just making up a supernatural cause, we can actually investigate the natural one. Instead of just praying over a disease, we can go out and find a cure. Okay, so all of this is building up to Sagan's main point, his central argument. And it's this. The most important gift science has given us isn't a big book of facts. It's a method. It's a powerful, universal toolkit for thinking clearly. This right here, this is the secret sauce. The scientific method demands two things that sound like they shouldn't go together. On one hand, you need this wild, no-holds-barred openness to new ideas, even really weird ones. But on the other hand, you have to apply the most rigorous, skeptical scrutiny to everything. I love this description. It's like imagination handcuffed to criticism. And you know what that means? At its very core, science is kind of rebellious. Its great commandment is to mistrust arguments from authority. An idea isn't true just because some important person says it is. It's true because it holds up to testing, because there's evidence that you, me, or anyone else can go and check for themselves. The process itself is actually pretty simple, but boy, is it ruthless. Step 1, have an idea. Step 2, test it against reality. And step 3, be brutally honest about the results. If your favorite, most beloved idea turns out to be wrong, you have to throw it out. You discard it and free up your mind for a better idea. It's tough, but that's how we learn. That's how progress happens.
So, okay, that all sounds great in theory, but how does it work in the real world? Well, Sagan gives this brilliant example that involves our own brains and our powerful and often really misleading habit of seeing patterns even when they're not really there.
Think about this. It's a classic. Why do we see a man in the moon? You've seen it, right? We all look up and see a face. But why? Is there actually a giant face carved up there? Or is something else going on inside our heads? Well, the answer is all about evolution. For a baby, being able to recognize a human face is one of the most critical survival skills there is. So our brains got really, really good at it. So good, in fact, that the software is now kind of oversensitive. And that's why we see faces everywhere, in the clouds, in a piece of toast, and yeah, in the random splotches on the moon. This exact tendency played out in a huge way on a totally different planet. Back in 1976, a NASA orbiter was snapping pictures of Mars, and it sent back this. And you can see it plain as day, a massive, mile-wide rock formation that looks, well, unmistakably like a human face staring up into space. And of course, people went nuts. Ancient Martians, a message from aliens, a giant NASA cover-up. But this is where that scientific mindset, that little candle in the dark, comes in. It doesn't jump to the most exciting conclusion. It asks a much simpler question. What's more likely here? That an ancient Martian civilization built a giant monument that just happens to look like a face from our planet, or that it's a hill shaped by millions of years of wind and dust, and we just happened to photograph it when the light and shadows looked just right? So, yeah, the face on Mars ended up being another great cautionary tale, just like the so-called canals on Mars that people thought they saw a century before. It's just a powerful reminder that our own brains, our own desire to find meaning and patterns can so easily trick us. Science is the tool we use to double-check those feelings against what's actually there. And all of this brings us to Sagan's final point. And honestly, it might be his most important one. This way of thinking, this skepticism, it isn't just for scientists wearing lab coats. He argues it's an absolutely essential tool for everyone, especially if you're a citizen living in a democracy. I mean, just think about the parallels. They're pretty incredible. Science needs a free and open exchange of ideas to work. So does democracy. Science requires us to question authority and demand evidence. A healthy democracy relies on an informed citizenry that does the exact same thing. Both of them challenge people who just pretend to have all the answers. And that's the ultimate power of thinking like a scientist. It's our best defense, our best BS detector against anyone who wants to control us with claims they can't back up. Doesn't matter if they're selling snake oil or political promises. I love how Sagan puts it. Science is a way to call the bluff of those who only pretend to knowledge. So in the end, Sagan leaves us with a choice. The world is full of darkness, right? Superstition, misinformation, people who want to fool you for their own gain. And science offers us a candle, a small flame to push back against that darkness. So the only question left is the one he leaves for all of us. How are you going to light yours?